Welcome, everyone. My name is Carla Zeller. I have the privilege of serving on the Council for Life Board as neighborhood chair. We are so grateful that each of you joined us this evening for our program on the overturning of Roe and what it means for Texas women. We thank Rebecca Lutz, our 2022 Council for Life Board Secretary and incoming board chair, and her husband Bobby for hosting the program in their gorgeous home and for faithfully supporting Council for Life for many years. Where is Rebecca? Is she? Oh, okay, there you go. Thank you, Rebecca. Let me open our time together with a prayer. Father, we bow our hearts before you. We praise you, for you are the giver of life. We praise you for this opportunity to gather here this evening, and we commit this evening to you. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. We are all so grateful for the overturning of the Roe decision in the Dobbs case in June. We are living in an historic era. It is my pleasure to introduce some of the other Council for Life board and staff who are with us this evening. Ann Caruth is our founder emeritus. Ann, do you want to? Okay. Kathy Sisk is our 2022 board chair. Kathy. Council for Life staff, Natalie Siegel, is the director of finance. Natalie. Leanne Morris is the executive director. Thank you, Leanne. And Suzanne Everbach is director of communication and philanthropy. Thank you, Suzanne. And now, Leanne and Suzanne will begin our program. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Carla, for that warm welcome, beautiful prayer, and for being our outstanding neighborhood outreach chair. She worked so hard to plan this very special evening, so let's give Carla. Yes. And Rebecca, thank you again for opening up your lovely home to all of us. So I'm Suzanne Everbach, and I'm the Director of Communication and Philanthropy. We are thrilled and grateful that you are here this evening as we all eagerly await a discussion about the overturning of Roe and what exactly does that mean for Texas women. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about Council for Life with you. So 21 years ago, our founder emeritus, Ann Caruth, and 10 other ladies were deeply disturbed by the devastation of abortion in the aftermath of the Roe v. Wade decision. These ladies boldly and courageously stepped up and formed Council for Life. They prayerfully created our mission statement, which you conveniently have in your chairs. Our mission is to empower women, men, and youth to make life-affirming choices. And we do that in two ways. We educate our community about the complex issues surrounding unplanned pregnancies at events precisely like the one where we are gathered this evening. And we also fundraise. We fundraise for life-affirming nonprofits in North Texas, such as Pregnancy Help for You, whose executive director, she is a rock star, by the way, Tanya Thomas, is going to be on our panel this evening. The first thing we want you to know about the overturning of Roe is that it means life. All caps. And as recently as this week, the New York Times had a very encouraging article that already, since Roe was overturned, 10,000 babies have been saved in our nation. So what a huge blessing and win for life. So let's see, where am I in my notes?
Core values.
Core values. Thank you, Leanne. We're a team. So also on your mission statement, you've got our core values. So our founders also identified these values that they took very, very seriously and that we have adhered to faithfully, despite being in the midst of a culture that would have you believe and do otherwise, oftentimes with very loud and angry voices. Okay, so we've talked about that. Yes, so important part of our core values. The Word of God is our foundation of truth, and we seek to ensure that all of our endeavors glorify God and that we reflect Christ-like love, mercy, grace, forgiveness, compassion. So, that's Counsel for Life. Let's talk a little bit about Roe. In 1973, the Supreme Court of the United States handed down the egregiously flawed Roe decision, creating, as I'm sure you know, a constitutional right to abortion. The sexual revolution in our country exploded. And so over the course of the past 50 years since it was passed, 64 million babies have violently and horrifically died because of abortion. That's a lot of little lives. It's a Holocaust. But all along, there have always been life-affirming agencies in our midst, providing compassionate care to vulnerable mothers, fathers, families who are facing an unplanned pregnancy and are devoid of hope. They come alongside them. They connect them with the vital resources that they need, and they share the love and the hope of Christ. They walk alongside them before, during, and after their pregnancies so that they can have a flourishing life, self-sustaining, live independently for themselves and their precious babies. So Counsel for Life, I said that we raise funds, and so our model is we're not the boots on the ground. We're not the heroes like Tanya out there. We are the connector. We are raising funds from our friends in the community, the North Texas community, and then we give those to the life-affirming agencies who are doing the work. And we rigorously research and vet our grant applicants. This past year, 2022, what a year for life, we know we had 40+ applicants, agencies, who requested funds, and we ended up selecting a record 28 beneficiaries this year, so praise God for that. So I'm wrapping up here. On the back of our mission statement, you will find a list of those 28 beneficiaries, and the care that they provide spans the spectrum of the life issue. It includes pregnancy resource centers, maternity homes, adoption and foster care, post-abortion healing and support, parenting and life skills education, youth and college mentoring, and targeted media outreach. So this summer, there was an historical day in June. Does everybody remember that day on June 24th when we heard the news that we thought we would never live to see, right? That the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe. And that was the Dobbs case. The High Court found there is no constitutional right to abortion. So what they did is they sent the question of the legality of abortion back to the individual states. So therefore, it's left up to the people and their elected representatives. And although Dobbs no doubt represents a huge victory for the pro-life movement, and abortion is now illegal in Texas, there is still a lot of work to be done, and in many respects, the fight has just begun. And you know, our life-affirming agencies have always had huge needs, but in this post-Roe environment, their needs have surged. They are greater than ever. They are trying to keep up with the unprecedented demand for their services. More babies are being born. Yeah. So, Leanne, can you please share with us about how we could meet the great needs of those agencies?
I'd be delighted to. Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate you being able to tell about the history of both Council for Life and the Roe decision. I'm Leanne Morris. I'm the Executive Director for Council for Life, and I am so honored to be here with all of you. It's a sellout crowd. It's a standing room only crowd. You all always surprise me. So thank you, and thank you again to Rebecca. Tonight we're here to introduce you to some of the facts about the history of abortion in our country, which Suzanne has covered a lot of those, and how we can move forward now that Roe is no longer the law, now that abortion is no longer a constitutional right. We have provided you with several things in your chairs. Suzanne went over our mission statement with you, and I'm going to go over a few things too. The first thing I'd like to talk with you about is a list of resources that we have provided for you. It's this page, and we wanted you to be equipped with the information that you need to talk about life with your friends, your families, perhaps at Thanksgiving when you all gather together. But we wanted you to have the resources that you would then be equipped to talk first about the science of life. We know, or most of you know perhaps, that life begins at conception, at fertilization. And now we have the science, we have the technology, the video, we have sonograms. We can see and hear the confirmation that life begins at conception. And so that's a really good thing to share with your friends and family. Dr. Womack, Ashley, I think is going to talk a little bit more about the science. I don't understand all of it, but she does. But the point is that an embryo, it really is a child, a human being that deserves a voice and a chance at life. And that's what we're all about. And so we also hope from this list of resources that you might even dive into the books that contain what we call the apologetics of life, the defense of life. And those books will help you with some of the arguments or the propositions that friends might suggest to you. And the reason these books and these arguments, these apologetics, are important is because really there are many in our country, perhaps 50-60% of our nation, that believes that a woman should have a right to abortion, and that it should be a legal right, there should be legal access to it. They believe that it is a moral good. And maybe even some of you here tonight haven't completely made up your mind on the issue. You may have seen that Anne Hathaway just a few days ago said on The View that abortion is mercy. We at Council for Life strongly disagree with that, and it breaks our hearts to hear that, but clearly there are people who agree with her. And so we hope that you will familiarize yourself with the information that you need, perhaps the statistics, the science, the arguments that you need to carry on the conversation, because now that Roe has been overturned, what it means for Texas women and men, thank you guys for being here tonight, what it means is that we now have a door that's been opened, and we can walk through it and start having these conversations like we're doing tonight. So that's one of the things that the Overturn of Roe means. Also on that list of resources are movies, and so some of you might want to watch movies. Those are can be a fun thing to do, but it's a serious topic, so some of the movies are a little serious. But also songs. I have a terrible voice, but that doesn't stop me. I love to sing the songs that are on this list, so please join me. And if you have to do it in your car when you're alone by yourself, that's okay. It's okay. They will inspire you. And Council for Life has brought musicians and singers to perform for us at our big Council for Life Celebrating Life luncheon in the past, because we believe and we know that when we put words to music and we sing them, that it gets deep into our souls and deep into our hearts. And it really matters what you sing. There are also websites and social media accounts listed on the resource page that will be very helpful for you. There's a lot of change in our world these days, and these accounts help you keep up with the changing environment, the changing news. Okay, so also in your chair, we have what we call this little skinny sheet. We call it an infographic. The infographic tells two stories. On the front, it has the answer to the question that Suzanne asked me, and I'm sorry it took me so long, Suzanne, to get to your answer. But your question was, what are we doing? What can we do to help women? Well, the infographic tells us. In Texas, there are more than 300 agencies that help women in an unplanned pregnancy. In North Texas, we have more than 60. Tanya's agency is one of them. Her agency is Pregnancy Help For You. So keep in mind the big four. It's for you. Those agencies help women and babies for free. And every year, more than 100,000 women and babies in Texas are helped. So when you hear the arguments out there in the Thanksgiving dinner or wherever that, well, you pro-life people only care about life in the womb, you don't care about the baby after the baby's born, it's just not true. 100,000 women and children helped every year for free. What kind of help do they get? They get mental health counseling, they get health tests, they get food, housing, diapers, formula, all the baby essentials. There is material help for them. And we are so proud of our state. Our state this year in 2022 and next year in 2023 will fund $100 million in the Alternatives to Abortion program, and I bet Tanya's agency receives some of those funds. $50 million this year, $50 million next year. We put our money where it counts, helping women and babies. So that's the great news on the front. The story of how we provide help in Texas is on the front of our infographic, but on the back is another story. It's the sad, tragic story of the history of abortion in the United States. And Suzanne covered so much of that, but I just want to highlight this 64 million number. It is a tragic number, and it represents probably 100 million of our people in our country. Many women have had multiple abortions, so I don't think there's 64 million women in our country who are post-abortive, who are experienced abortion, but maybe there are 50 million. That's a good estimate, I think. And so if there's 50 million women, that means there's 50 million men who also have experienced abortion. And so you add those numbers together, and these are staggering. 100 million of our population out of 300 million, a third of our population. It's staggering. And so it's a tragic story. But even more tragic is how this story has impacted the Black African American community. And I'm just going to go through some statistics for you. A little heavy, but we need to face the reality. Since the Roe decision in 1973, 19 million Black babies have been aborted. Out of that 64 million number, 19 million of them were African American babies. We really want to see that number go down to 0. We all want our country to be abortion-free. But right now, we're in the midst of it. Maybe this time next year, the number will be reduced in half. Maybe instead of 800, 900,000 abortions each year, we'll have 450,000 abortions at the end of 2023. But isn't that number still way too many? If we get down into the real details of it, we can see that from those 19 million African American babies that were aborted since the Roe decision, we could look at, for example, the state of Georgia. An article recently, last week, looked at the state of Georgia. In 2021, last year, the Georgia Department of Health stated that there were 35,000 abortions in Georgia. In Texas, we would have maybe 50, 55,000 each year. Tanya, is that about right, what you think? But in Georgia, they have about 35,000. In Georgia, 65% of those abortions were performed on black women. In Fulton County, where Atlanta is located, 74% of the abortions in 2021 were for black women, and yet they represented 45% of the female population in the Atlanta County. In 2021, there were 5,500 black births in Atlanta and 5,000 black abortions. Almost equivalent. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. But we have a similar tragic story here in Texas. So what can we do about this tragedy in a post-Roe America? Well, one thing we think you can do is become an advocate for life with Counsel for Life. And so that's represented by the green sheet in your chairs. The little tree is your advocate information sheet. Any amount of money, $1, will get you the status of being an advocate for life. And so we hope that you'll fill out the card and you'll hand it to one of the staff members or board members here tonight. But the point is that we want to continue the work that Ann and her friends and so many in the pro-life world have done for 50 years. We want to continue this work. We have to. We have to support the beneficiaries who are doing this work. With the overturn of Roe and Texas having made abortion illegal, there are so many women who are pregnant who are going to turn to parenting or turn to having their children. We don't want them to go out of state. We don't want them to get the abortion pills here illegally in Texas. We do want to help them. And so, what does the overturn of Roe really mean? Well, we hope that it's a new way of living for the next generation of Texas women, and hopefully a new way of living for all American women. So now we're going to hear from our speakers tonight. We're going to introduce Dr. Ashley Womack, who is sitting to my right. And Suzanne, would you do that for us?
It would be my pleasure, Leanne. Thank you. So Dr. Ashley Womack is a proud Texas native and loves serving her hometown of Dallas, Texas. In fact, she went to high school not far from here at Ursuline Academy. Now Dr. Womack is an OB/GYN at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, where she practices nephro-technology and minimally invasive gynecologic surgery. She is a nephro-technology medical consultant and fellowship-trained gynecological surgeon. She specializes in infertility, endometriosis, pelvic pain, abnormal bleeding, and hormone abnormalities. Dr. Womack is passionate about life-affirming and dignifying health care for women. When not in the hospital, you can find Dr. Womack enjoying quality time at home with her amazing husband, Ryan, their adorable 21-month-old, and their precious baby on the way. She's like the perfect panelist, OBGYN, right? Okay, and now, Leanne, would you please tell us about our other speaker, Tanya Thomas?
Absolutely. What a pleasure to tell you about Tanya. Tanya is the Executive Director of Pregnancy Help for You, don't forget, a nonprofit medical clinic in Keller specializing in early pregnancy confirmation, education to encourage women to make a positive pregnancy plan. She has a passion for charity work, and at the heart of her personal and professional life is her motto, do good, pass it on. Her most significant achievements involve helping others discover connections and purpose in everyday life. She serves on the leadership team at her church, and that is News International Christian Center, and she helps spread the gospel through the media ministry. We all know how important that is. Thank you, Tanya. She's living out the Great Commission daily, speaking truth and love into the hearts of the staff, volunteers, and women who come to the Pregnancy Center for help. Tanya is a certified biblical counselor. She holds a BA in English and a master's degree in marketing and communication. She and her husband, Randy, who is adorable. I keep seeing him on Zoom. He's adorable. They've been married 29 years. They have 2 adult children, Isaac and Miranda, and she enjoys family time shared around a good meal. Yes, hallelujah. Bible study, hallelujah. And classic sitcoms like Andy Griffith's Show. Welcome, Tanya. Thank you. We are going to start our program with some questions for these 2 amazing ladies.
Dr. Womack, you're up first. There is no longer a constitutional right to abortion. An abortion is illegal in Texas. What is the new law? And is there still a heartbeat law?
Okay, great question. Yes, so, and a little caveat, I don't know law in particular, but my understanding is that with the overturning Roe v. Wade, we had a trigger law in place, and so with the overturning, this trigger law came into effect in September, and that banned all abortions with the exception of if the life of the mother is in danger. And so it's now a felony to perform an abortion to kill a baby in the womb. And I think there's also a provision for a civil suit too in that. So as far as the heartbeat law, now that's pretty much not needed because it's now all banned.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll borrow this, I guess, and we'll pass it back and forth. Tanya, we know that the law has changed, so how has it impacted your work? And what changes have you seen in your clients and your donors, your volunteers, since the decision in June?
Well, for our clients, they're still coming through our doors, which is wonderful. We want that. We've noticed that they are either more determined to pursue an abortion, or they are settled. They're settled in the fact that it's not available. So now what do I do next? And so, which is encouraging because to me that says that by removing that option, that temptation, that they are okay with moving forward with having their baby or placing them for adoption, which, by the way, our adoption numbers have increased more than they ever have. Women who are more willing to talk about adoption. And so that's been huge for us, just that the women are saying yes to this, because the reality is they still have a crisis pregnancy. The laws aren't going to change that. We're always going to have unplanned pregnancies, and so their issues are real. And so it's nice for them and for us to still say, you're not out of options. Texas hasn't removed something from you that you can never get back. You still have options. You still have choices, and so it's been wonderful. We have several adoption agencies that'll be at our center within 20 minutes. to have these conversations about adoption. But yes, our women that are coming through, if they're more abortion determined, that just means that they're seeking abortions outside of the state,
Right.
or they're seeking abortions through the chemical pill. And so, you know, all of our staff and volunteers are very well equipped to have these conversations with women, and we're not having the conversation of thou shalt not kill. We're having the conversation of how can I help you? What do you need? You know, what do you need? Because that's the thing, we have to let them know that we care about them first and foremost. We don't want to be, you know, painted with this paintbrush of you only care about the babies, because we really do care about the mamas. You know, you get the mama, you save the mama, you save the baby.
That's right.
And so that's been our heart all along, honestly. But as far as our donors, they've really stepped up. Now you have two types of donors. You got the donors that, you know, yay, we did it, and they pack their bags, they're done. They think the mission's completed, but the mission will never really be completed just because, again, unplanned pregnancies will always exist.
Right.
But boy, I'll tell you, the ones that understand that the work has only just begun, they've really stepped up, and we have gained some new first-time donors, and so that's been encouraging. And then our churches have come out of the woodwork. I don't know where they've been all this time, but thank the Lord, they are in there now. And so some of these churches we pursued for years, and they haven't been, engaging, and some had been still kind of nervous to maybe even mention the issue over the pulpit. But now I think they're seeing it, and they're seeing that okay, now we can do something. We can talk about this, and we can do something about it. So that's been encouraging.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. Okay, Ashley. We know there has been social media hysteria about abortion laws preventing women who miscarry or who have an ectopic pregnancy from getting the health care that they need. A lot of fear. Tell us exactly what happens with a miscarriage, please. What is a DNC? And is a doctor legally able to deliver the baby?
Yes, there's been a lot of social media outrage ever since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. A lot of fear mongering, I think, and a lot of, this happens all the time with maybe the other side of the aisle, is that they love to twist words in a way that fear mongers, and so we have to be really clear with our definitions. And so when we talk about a miscarriage, it's totally different than an abortion. So to conflate the two is just totally erroneous. But a miscarriage is a baby inside the uterus that is less than 20 weeks, that does not have a heartbeat, it has passed. And so in that case, there are options to treat the miscarriage, which will not progress to a grown baby, will not deliver a live birth. And so the options are you can wait for the baby to pass naturally, you can use medications to help the baby pass, or you can do a DNC, which Suzanne mentioned. And so any of these three options are legal in the state of Texas because the baby is no longer living. So a DNC in particular, this is also something that the media likes to conflate because to do a surgical abortion, it's also called a DNC. And so they say, well, you can't do a DNC now because that's an abortion procedure. Well, it's not. It happens to be the same technical procedure, but in one case the baby's living, and that's drastic difference than the other case where the baby has passed. And so a DNC is basically a way to empty the uterus with suction aspiration as a way to treat miscarriage.
Thank you for that clarification, Ashley. And could you also please explain to us what exactly an ectopic pregnancy is and how is that treated under Texas law?
Yes, so an ectopic pregnancy by definition is a pregnancy that's implanted somewhere outside the uterus. So there's several places where it can be, and we can get into details of all of that, but by far and away, high 90% percentile of the time, it's going to be in the tube. That's the most common place because fertilization happens in the tube and then it travels down the tube to the uterus. So at times it can get stuck in the tube and implant there. And so for an ectopic pregnancy, under Texas law, because this pregnancy cannot go to full term, and if it does continue to grow, the mother's life was in imminent danger because the risk is that the ectopic pregnancy can rupture and the woman can hemorrhage intra-abdominally. And this is a surgical emergency. There's very few surgical emergencies in gynecology, and this is one of them. And so under the Texas provisions, you can treat this an ectopic pregnancy because the life of the mother is in danger. Now, in order to be, we kind of talked about this the other day, in order to be morally consistent, we can get into the details of what is the morally illicit way to treat an ectopic pregnancy in a way that you can avoid directly killing the baby, because we do, as believers in life begins at conception, we do recognize that although the baby is in the tube, it's still a baby, it still has a life. And so you can practice in a life-affirming way, although you're treating the ectopic pregnancy.
Wow. Ashley, wow, that was an amazing answer and information that we so need to be able to clarify to friends and family and neighbors. We just want to reemphasize, we just think that this is the most compelling moral issue of our time, and clarity is essential if we're going to speak about this moral issue persuasively. So thank you. Why don't we go to a new topic, Tanya? You kind of mentioned this idea of a chemical abortion pill. Can you kind of describe what that is? And we know it's illegal in Texas, but are Texas women still getting those pills?
Well, with the overturn, that goes back to the states, which means, of course, they can't access it here in Texas, but it's accessible in many states still across the USA. And so for us, that is a problem because we do know that our clients, women in the DFW area, are still getting access to the abortion pill. And whether that's through mail, whether that's going to another state or going across the border. And so it's still definitely a problem, but what it is, you want me to describe? So what it is, when a person decides that they want to, take the pill, first of all, they have to be within the first, is it 10 weeks, Leslie? I've got my phone a friend. I got my phone a friend in the back. So up to 10 weeks, a woman can take a 2-pill regimen to end the pregnancy. And the first one, and I'm gonna hack the words because I'm not a nurse, but the first one is mifepristone, and that blocks the progesterone. And then the second pill, so by blocking the progesterone means that the baby is not going to have a viable environment in the uterus. And so then the second pill is called misoprostol. Misoprostol. I can't say those words, you guys. But that is what actually causes the uterus to contract, which expels the baby. And so that 2-part process is what they can still access in other areas. And it's devastating because now you have this at-home abortion. And who's with this woman when her baby passes? She's alone. Which she was probably alone in the first place, which is why she, perhaps made the decision to abort. So that is very traumatic. It's something that we have, we include that in our conversations with women. And in all of our conversations, we mention all of her choices because she still has access to all 3 choices: to parent, to place for adoption, or to abort. And so we discuss all those. We never recommend or refer for abortion, but we want her to feel empowered to choose. She still has that. It's her right. It's her right to choose. And so, but I'm telling you, we love on her with the gospel, and we hope that when she leaves our center, that she feels the love of Christ, that she feels like she can stand on her own 2 feet to make a choice to parent. Or to place her baby for adoption, but to give birth, give this child life. So, but that is the big thing that we're looking at, is the abortion pill and how that's affecting these women.
Okay. You said it's an at-home abortion, and she can do this if she's 10 weeks or less. How does she know? if she's 10 weeks or less. And if it's at home, has she gone to see a doctor?
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. It's shocking that this could be so easily administered without having any kind of guidelines, any kind of medical oversight over these women's health care, and they, abortion is considered, a safe alternative, but not this.
Not
This is not. It's very dangerous. She doesn't know how far along she is. If she comes to our center, she'll know. If she's brave enough to make that step, knowing that we don't provide or refer for abortion, if she's brave enough to come and have a conversation with us, she'll leave with that information.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there's no oversight once that happens to her at home, and then what's the aftercare? And so there's so much to be concerned about, more than her right to have this abortion.
Ashley, have you seen women who have taken the chemical abortion pills, or have you heard other OBGYNs who have seen them?
Yeah, I haven't personally had, I just started practicing here in January, and so I haven't personally seen one who's taken it and regretted it and come to see me. I've had women who've had abortions in the past, for sure. But my colleague has treated some women who took the first pill, the mifepristone, and then requested the abortion reversal pill. And so that's a great gift that we have, that we can give these women who regret it. But yeah, I presume that I will start to see more of these as this becomes more the way women go about pursuing abortion, if they're very determined, like you're mentioning.
What's the reversal process?
So the abortion reversal process is, once a woman takes the first pill, mifepristone, which is the anti-progesterone pill, there is an option to take, it's basically high-dose progesterone in order to reverse the effects. You're trying to outcompete the medication that she's already taken. It's most effective within the first 24 hours that she's taken the first pill. It can be up to 68% success rates at stopping or reversing the abortifacient effect. But once we're out of that 24-hour window, you can still try to give. It's basically high-dose progesterone. The success rates are lower after that 24 hours, but we still encourage trying, because you never know what can happen. But once she starts to take the side attack, that's the other one, the misoprostol. That's the one that actually starts the contractions. That one's very hard to reverse.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Tanya, can you tell us about your experience with women who have had out-of-state abortions and the care they need when they return to Texas for follow-up?
So we definitely have had women that come through our doors and still wanted to pursue the abortion, so they've crossed over. Typically, we hear from that they're going to Colorado, and so. But what we've discovered, we try to follow up with them even afterwards if they want to stay in communication with us. But one of the things that we're concerned about is they're not telling us that they've gone through with an abortion, so they're coming back saying, "Hey, I still have a positive pregnancy test. Can you do a sonogram? Can you do a sonogram? And am I pregnant?" But the reality could be that they're still having a positive pregnancy test just because the hormone's still in her body, and they know they've taken a pill, they've done, they've had an abortion basically. And so I think we are having women come back to us and having us confirm their abortion even without us knowing for sure. And so we, of course, if there's a positive pregnancy test, of course we're going to do a sonogram anyway. And whether she tells us or not, that's what happened. We're going to love on her. We're gonna give her the same care that we've given everyone else that comes through our doors. And I have heard that other centers are even saying that the abortion clinics are saying, "Hey, for your follow-up care, go to one of those free pregnancy clinics, and they'll let you know if it's done." So that's disturbing, but at the same time, if they're gonna go through the process, I'd rather they get that aftercare with us than with the abortion clinics, because I don't believe they care for them not the way that we do. And so that's fine. We wish that they made a better decision, but we are here for women. We provide post-abortion healing services, and that's one of the things that, we can do as a group, a group setting, or even one-on-one, or even as a retreat, kind of just to go deep. We work with deeper still. So there's ways that this can still be a positive outcome when we know that, they're coming to us for post-abortion care. Because that's not just a physical, that is emotional, that's spiritual, and every other part of a woman, that's gonna be touched by that decision.
Absolutely.
Tanya, we like to check in with our beneficiaries on a frequent basis, and Tanya and I were emailing a few months ago, right after the decision came down, and she said, I remember it because it just touched me so, that you feel like it's now essential for your center to offer the pregnancy pill reversal protocol, and that you all are actually in the process of doing that. Could you share with our audience what's involved with that, please?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are so proud. Our nurse manager just completed her schooling to become a nurse practitioner, and so beginning next year, thanks to the Council for Life, we'll be one of the providers of the abortion pill reversal protocol. And what that means, just like Dr. Womack explained, after she's taken that first pill and she's had regret, she can come to us and we can prescribe the progesterone. And once she's in our care, the follow-up is, I want to say a weekly follow-up, and then through the first trimester to continue to care for mama and baby. And it's really just follow-up through sonograms, obviously soul care, we care about that so very much. But it seems so simple. It's the same procedure that women that are prone to miscarriage use. And it seems so simple, but this is a game changer, and this is a life changer. And so, what hope for women that are, they took that pill under pressure, whatever that pressure was, and now they have, they get this rebirth, they get this second chance, and their baby does too. And so we are proud, again, thank you to the Council for Life, that we get to participate in this and just really hit the ground running next year and save some babies at the last minute.
And thanks to our guests here this evening, you have a lot of baby essentials that you can bring back to the center for those precious mamas and babies.
Yeah. Thank you all for everything that you brought for the pregnancy help for you. Well, Ashley, all this talk about medications, we might be a little confused. What's the difference between the abortion pill, that medicated abortion that you were talking about, and the morning after pill? Can you comment on how they work and the availability of both of those medications?
Yes. Okay, yes, so that's a good question because there's lots of different pills out there and it gets confusing. But yes, the abortion pill, that's exactly what we've been talking about. That's mifepristone and misoprostol. And I just want to emphasize what Tanya was saying too. That's a very it's a very traumatic thing to go through at home. I know we do this for miscarriages too, but I tell them they're already going through the trauma of losing a baby, and then telling them you're going to cramp, you're going to have heavy bleeding, nausea at home, and then to do that with an abortion, you've now, instead of losing the baby in the clinic and making the abortion clinic the place of trauma and loss, it's now brought to your own home, into your bathroom. And so that's, just a very traumatic experience. So just want to emphasize that the post-abortion care is just huge, especially now with this. So that's the abortion pill. Now the morning after pill, there's a few different, it's in a category of emergency contraception, I'd say. There's a couple different morning after pill mechanisms, and then other emergency contraception, the IUD is used as emergency contraception. The morning after pill, one of them is Plan B, which I'm sure y'all have all heard of, and so that's available over the counter. It's basically high dose progesterone, which sounds like what we're giving to save babies. There's different ways that it works. So, and it kind of depends on where you are in your cycle, which is all, the NAPR technology focuses on. But so let's say you take the high dose progesterone in 2 to 4 days before ovulation. It can delay ovulation, okay? So then you just never ovulate and therefore prevent pregnancy. If you had a sexual encounter or rape or anything like that, it can be a defense against conception. But if taking the Plan B, the high dose progesterone closer to ovulation, or perhaps a little bit after, it can inhibit the ability of the corpus luteum, which is the cyst on the ovary that sustains the pregnancy, inhibit its ability to produce progesterone, which is essential for a baby to grow in the womb. And so in that sense, if it has that mechanism during that time of the cycle, it could lead to failed implantation and therefore have an abortive effect. And so it's a little bit confusing to exactly say whether Plan B is abortifacient or not, because it really does depend on when you take it in your cycle.
Yeah.
And then the other morning after pill is prescription only. It's Ella. I don't know if you've heard of Ella or ulipristal, but that's basically a progesterone modulator or it's basically mifepristone RU46, and that has anti-progesterone effects, and so that's definitely abortifacient. And then lastly, for emergency, it's kind of off topic, but the IUD can be placed, after intercourse as emergency contraception. This obviously has abortifacient effects because it affects the endometrial lining, stopping implantation.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. We needed to know.
Okay, well, I think we have one final question
We do.
for Tanya and then Dr. Womack. So Tanya, what is pregnancy help for you? What is your greatest need right now? And what takeaway would you like to leave with our audience this evening?
Thanks. Well, our greatest need are you guys. We need y'all. To be a voice for the unborn and for these mamas, and also to be the hands and feet. We need somebody that's going to sit in front of these women and ask them, are you okay? How can I help you? And so it takes people, right? It takes funding. And so that's why I love, the Council for Life. I love that, all these organizations on the sheet there representing pro-life support throughout this, throughout DFW. But the greatest need is always people. Pro-life people, Christian pro-life people, people who give a care. We need them. We need people that can really help us serve this population of women and men who feel underserved, who feel like something's been stolen from them. And they just need to know that, Jesus is here. Like I said, we don't beat them over the head with the Bible, but we are free to talk about Jesus. And, we've had, I don't know the stat now, but we probably got about 15 people that have given their heart to Jesus just this year. So, but if they come in for a pregnancy test, and they left with Jesus. That's awesome. That's awesome. But again, it takes our friends, you guys. It takes all of us to help this community, and we appreciate what you've done. The resources that you're giving out there. One of the main things that is hard for these women is financial. That's like a biggie. That's a biggie. So diapers, may not have hurt us, our finances, just to, we're not, oh no, they're expensive. Diapers are expensive, formula's expensive. And so, you picture a single mom with that. So that is important, and, and all the things that they're gonna need next. And so we're constantly thinking about, what can we do now? What's the next step? And the next step, how can we help these women really adopt a pro-abundant life mindset, which is beyond just having the baby. Now it's having a baby and living, a godly life, and really, making those hard changes that lead to the righteousness and just a better way of life. So we would appreciate y'all just walk alongside us as we walk alongside women and men that are facing unplanned pregnancies.
That was beautiful, Tanya. Thank you. I just want to add that a lot of the women, maybe very much most of the women, never had that kind of an example in their family. They don't even know what it's like to parent because they were never parented. They certainly don't know life skills because the generations before them didn't share with them, you know, like you said, righteous life skills, just the basics of life skills. So when you say people, you mean people to come alongside and help. So Ashley, we want to ask you, what would you like to tell our audience? One last remark maybe about the sanctity of life or whatever you'd like this audience to take away.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank y'all for recognizing the sanctity of life. I mean, it's a mindset that needs to just permeate our whole society. Because when you, especially in healthcare, I mean, the difference between a doctor who recognizes the sanctity of life from the moment of conception to a doctor who doesn't. Like, if we were to really get into debate, it's like ships in the night. Like, we just don't speak the same language. You know, like, the way that I look at a pregnant woman is I have 2 patients, and it's from the moment she knows she's pregnant. I mean, there's 2 patients. And so it really just changes how you approach a woman, how you approach her treatment, and especially also in times of loss, you know, with a miscarriage. It's a time when a family has really, or they're grieving, you know, and so for some doctors, it's not something that really, they don't approach it from that sense because it's not a life, you know, you try again, or, you know. So thank you for your example in recognizing the sanctity of life, and be that example when you go to your doctor, when you encounter them, if you have issues, you know, if God forbid, you know, experience a miscarriage or some kind of pregnancy complication or loss. I mean, be that voice about the unborn to your doctors, so that the healthcare providers can know that there are people who believe in that life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rebecca, would you mind if our audience asks a few questions? Would that be okay? Okay, great. I can bring the mic, or you can just try and have your big voice.
Big girl voice.
I have a question for the doctor. Just to know kind of how to explain this. My daughter, who's 35, came home and said she had gone to see her OB, just, you know, regular visit. And I would say, and this is also my OB, which is kind of weird, but you know, who I would say is probably more of a liberal thinker anyway. But she was just like, oh, you know, this is just awful. This, you know, ban on abortion. I had this mom, and you know, we thought we were going to lose her, but I'm afraid to do anything. And it was just, I might even, you know, it was just whoa, whoa, whoa. And my daughter's sitting there kind of going, I don't even know what to say about this. And she said, you know, and all, you know, as if her hands were tied to save the mom, and you know, the baby wasn't going to make it, and you know, and so my daughter's just kind of going, I don't know, you know, what am I going to say to you? You're the doctor. I have no idea what happened, but you know, I've read these cases like, oh, you know, to save the mother, we had to put her in an ambulance and, you know, take her to another stage. So how do you?
Well,
I know.
it's really unfair for the doctor to be telling your daughter details like this, when she has no medical experience. What is she supposed to say?
I know.
It's kind of emotional manipulation.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
She doesn't know. I mean, she doesn't know the details. Even if she was in healthcare, she doesn't know the details of the case.
Yeah.
So how can she give you an argument? I don't know. I think if I were in her position, I would say, well, wow, what an opportunity you had to care for that mom and baby. And maybe just leave it at that. I mean, because you don't know the consequences of it, but just so that she knows that someone's thinking of both lives.
Right.
You know, but that's not really fair.
But yeah, but so for the life of the mom, there is provision,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details. I think a lot of times, like I said, when I talk to doctors who don't recognize both patients, it's like ships in the night. I mean, our conversations are totally different. So, you know, maybe for me, my threshold to care for that mother in a critical condition is much higher, much lower. Like, I'll care for her to the fullest extent that I can to try to save that baby's life. But for someone who doesn't see that baby as alive, I mean, you're gonna cut the cord much faster than, say, I would, you know. So that's why it's not really fair.
Yeah.
Somebody in the back?
Marissa?
Marissa.
Oh boy, everyone knows it. This is a question for Tanya. I'm curious if in your clinic you approach either Latina women or Black women or women of color who historically have been pressured more to get abortions by their communities, if you approach them differently because of maybe pressures that they may be getting from their families that maybe other women who come into your clinic wouldn't necessarily see.
Well, we treat everyone the same because we don't know what kind of pressures that, you know, the women are facing. And when you come into our center, people say that it feels so peaceful. They just feel like they can just open up and share. So when women are sharing that, hey, I'm pressured to do this, whether she is Latino, African American, or Caucasian, or you know, Asian, or anything, if she's feeling pressure, we definitely try to speak to that. We want to speak into her, and we want her parent, if the parent is pushing, hey, bring mom in, if you're okay with that. Let her see this, let her see her grandchild on the ultrasound. Let the father of the baby come to see his child on the ultrasound machine. And so we try to, when possible, minister to the ones that are pressuring as well. But legally, no one has a right to pressure anyone to have an abortion, and so that's one of the things we tell them right away. You know, this is you feel the pressure, but legally they can't force you to have this abortion. They can't. It's just illegal for it, you know, to be coerced and pressured into having an abortion. And so, but we really try to speak into her value. We let her just talk. If she wants to talk, we just let her talk, you know, because she doesn't have that voice. She doesn't have that voice in her household. She doesn't have that voice. You know, she has a threat to be kicked out from her parents' room. And so that's the first thing we do is really give her that moment, validate her fears, validate her feelings, and then, you know, take it from there. But we certainly do. The primary Hispanic women are the #1 served population at our clinic, and then Caucasian, and then African American. So, but it's real. That pressure is real. But we do try to just speak to them where they are and, you know, help them do that first step. You know, and hopefully they'll feel comfortable enough to hang with us and, you know, trust the things that we're saying and have that step of faith to move forward with the pregnancy.
Thank you.
I have a question, and this is kind of on the dark side of giving life, and I don't really know who the question is for, but in the case of rape or incest, you know, how do you approach that, you know, as a counselor? And, you know, people say, well, that as far as rape's concerned, the statistics are low, that you are pregnant through rape. So I don't know if that's valid or not. I haven't Googled it. And so anyway, I was just kind of wondering, that's the dark side that's hard to talk about. And how is that handled?
It'd be great for both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like how to talk to the woman specifically about it, obviously, even in those circumstances in rape and incest, I see 2 patients. I mean, there's already another life in there, no matter how the baby was conceived. And so, it is, you're right, it's a terrible conversation to have because you never wish any of those terrible things upon anybody, and much less to have to deal with sustained consequences for a long time. But at least for me, what an opportunity I have to be with her throughout the whole pregnancy, support her, and help her hopefully be a small part of her healing process in that time. So doing exactly what Tanya's mentioning is just being with her, listening to her needs and her fears and her anxieties, and validating her that she's doing a brave and courageous thing for her child. Something terrible happened to her, but she's being a hero for her child. And so at least framing it in that way.
And I didn't Google it either, but according to the Charlotte Lozier Institute, 0.3% of abortions are from rape or incest. 0.3. 0.2% is for life and major bodily function of the woman. 1.3% is fetal abnormality. 2.5% is physical health. 95.7% is elective. 95.7% is elective. But does that take away the value of that 0.3% that had the rape? No, because they are still a woman. That one person, if it was just one person, that's still a person that needs counseling. She just went through, an unthinkable situation. And we have had those clients that come in and say, I was raped, or, it was incest. And we speak to her the same way that we speak to everyone else, and that is, give her value for who she is. We listen, we validate her feelings, all of those things. But at the end of we tell her, everyone gets those 3 options. We still go through all those 3 options. And no matter what, it's her choice, right? It's her choice. But we want her to understand that just like her life has value, her baby's life has value. And how much more this innocent bystander, this baby was a product of a horrible situation, but the baby herself is wonderfully and fearfully made, has, immeasurable value, just like she does. And so we've had women who, in spite of both of those situations, chose life. They have chosen life. We had a baby shower for one woman that was a rape victim, and we just loved on her. What else can you do? What else can we do? We can't undo it. We can't reverse it. We can't make it go away. What happened, happened. Now all we can do is care for her. That's all we can do is care for her. And if she lets us, we never let go. Y'all, we are very clingy. As long as she lets us be in her life, we will. But how affirming, I'm just thinking of the photograph we took of the one lady that I'm thinking of, 9 months pregnant, sitting there with all these gifts around her, making room, being prepared for this very unexpected child that she was brave enough to say yes to.
We've talked before about posing the question back of, do you know if Ashley or I or Suzanne or Tanya was conceived in rape? Would you know? Are we valuable? Whether we were or not. There are great testimonies, people who were conceived in rape who know it and can speak to it. Those testimonies are powerful.
Well, isn't it awesome too how God's grace just multiplies? I mean, you see it because one person did one terrible thing to you, but then you have tons of people loving on you afterwards, and I mean, it's amazing.
And I joke about pregnancy help for you, but really the help is the key part. It's pregnancy help for you. Yeah, it's pregnancy help for you. Thank you for that question. We needed to talk about it. Thank you. Oh, Miss Ann.
I'm thinking about preparing your daughter to go up to college.
Yes.
And I've heard part of that sometimes is to provide the morning after pill. Can you speak to the detrimental effect of using that as contraceptive?
In a way that affects her health?
Yes,
specifically?
even their fertility, I don't know, but
Sure.
I think it's often used in that
In that context, yes. Well, I mean, so the first is the way that I've already explained is that you can't be certain it's not an abortifacient. And so if that's your concern, then you can't be certain that it's not. Second, I'm a huge proponent with NAPR technology. Our whole philosophy with life-affirming, dignifying healthcare is that I want to help your body do what it wants to do and not hijack the system and try to make it do something it's desperately trying to not do. And so with levonorgestrel, that's the medication that Plan B is. I mean, granted, it's a one-time dose. It gets out of your system. But for that particular cycle, you're, of course, kind of throwing things off depending on the time of the cycle that you're taking it. Now, if she's taking it, or whoever it is, taking it multiple times a week, I mean, that to have sustained progesterone at that dose, I mean, it does become it is just generally a contraceptive. When you're talking, maybe perhaps you're hinting towards some of the side effects that prolonged progesterone intake can have, which is like bone loss, hair loss. That takes years of using sort of high dose progesterone. But I mean, I don't think we don't have long-term studies on sustained use of Plan B because it's over the counter. So people just have access to it whenever they want to.
Is there an age limit on obtaining Plan B?
I'm not sure about if there's an age limit.
I am. There is no age
Okay.
limit.
It was a setup.
Forgive me. But the point being, any little teenage girl can, she can order it on Amazon and no one knows what she's doing, but Walmart has the big billboards. Have you seen the big billboards? 35, I think it is, 30 or 35 for Plan B.
And you mentioned young ages. I mean, especially having, when you're very young, just starting menarche, just starting your period, the brain to ovary communication is so naive, it's so immature. And so, I see this all the time, that sometimes girls are put on birth control pills at a very young age because they have irregular cycles, which are normal 2 to 3 years after menarche, after they start their periods. But then it doesn't give the hypothalamus that connection between your brain and ovary time to mature, because now you're on these hormones for a prolonged amount of time. And so it's hijacked the system. And so there's just, your brain never got the opportunity to learn how to function itself and give that pulsatile signal that it needs to give the ovary. And so I think later on in life you get a real dysfunction in hormone regulation because you've sort of messed with the system at a time that was critical for development.
Thank you. Yes. Go ahead.
How many before Roe birth control was used for abortion rather than a birth control type pill? Is that getting reduced since Roe has now been removed? And third, is there now a moral conviction that women are starting to see because there's more dialogue about what abortion really is? And is that going to change hearts?
Could you repeat your first question, sir?
The first question is, how many women percentage-wise use abortion as their birth control rather than birth control, like taking them?
During the 50 years.
Okay, yeah, I really don't have a number for that. Maybe you do? When in doubt? I don't have a number for that. But yeah, certainly with the rise of more reliable contraception, I think that's sort of taken over. And now it's more trendy to use an IUD, the levonorgestrel or copper IUD. So it's been a big push to do the IUD, and then birth control has become more ubiquitous. So I think it's probably more common now that birth control is used more.
I don't have a number.
Yeah, I don't have a number for that, but I imagine it's just more common, but I don't. I was hoping I could throw this stat out, but it's irrelevant. But I was misunderstanding your question initially, but in 2021, I'll just say that the medical abortion was 49% was performed January through April last year, and compared to the same time frame this year of the medical abortion, well, let me say it like this, 9,981 abortions were performed medically with the pill last year versus the same period this year, 7,710. And so, but that's for taking the pill. I don't know how those numbers pan out for
Surgical.
birth control, the birth control.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think as far as your other question, like, are people kind of becoming more morally convicted? I think with regard to birth control is what you asked. Yeah, I think I have seen more people ask more about the abortifacient effect of birth control, for sure. It's definitely not as talked about or recognized because a lot of people don't know the mechanisms of the actual birth control methods. But I think as more people become more thoughtful and really recognize that life begins at conception, you start to think about, what does that mean for what I'm doing to my body? And I think also the more natural granola movement has moved people to really think about hormones too and what they do to your body. So I think that's kind of a shift a little bit in the pro-life world. Yeah.
I have a question. I'm a biochemistry major at SMU, and I'm considering going to medical school. And I've been told by a couple people in my life that I would have a difficult time being pro-life in medical school. So would you be willing to share some of your experiences being pro-life in the medical school and then also in the medical field in general?
It's a great question.
You will have a hard time. But it's worth it. It's worth it every time. Every time someone challenges the truth, it's worth it every time to defend it. I mean, just... We need healthcare professionals like you. We need them desperately, and so I really encourage you to do that. The way you do that is you have mentors around you who have your same beliefs, who encourage you and help you in situations, very specific situations that will come up. You say, hey, this happened, or this is happening now. How can I prevent this bad situation, or how do I handle this? How do I do it cordially? How do I do it in a way that doesn't ruin my letters of recommendation or ruin my chances to get into fellowship, all those things. Real world concerns. As far as stories from, I have tons, oh my gosh, just tons of stories. You can imagine going to OBGYN residency in Austin. I mean, just tons of stories. I'll tell one, I went to, okay, y'all would appreciate this. This is, pre-Dobbs. So as a first year resident, or as a second year then, we had a mandatory rotation at the time. They were just, long story, change in politics. They made a mandatory rotation to go to Planned Parenthood for the family planning rotation. You get just different disciplines you have to fulfill in your OBGYN training. So one of them was family planning. And so they changed, our governing body changed it to be, the national governing body changed it to be opt-out training only. So it's built into your schedule that you go, and you can opt out if you want to, rather than before it was opt-in. So you have, if you want to do abortion training, you have to seek it out and find a rotation. So now it's built in, okay. And so I knew this rotation was coming. I knew that people before me had tried to opt out and were denied opting out. And so then I said, okay, well, maybe I'll go the first day and see what it's like. Maybe I can do some good, talk to some women, And so I went the first day, and they had me listen to the counselors first. Okay, so the counselor, that's the first step when women come in. And so this is how the counseling went. She said, so these are the papers that you can look at if you want to do, if you want to talk about adoption or parenting, but I'll just put them here and you can take them if you want to, but we can talk about which abortion's best for you.
Wow.
And I was like, this is not counseling. I mean, they don't get any talk about a full informed consent. It's just which abortion is the best for you. Okay, so I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. And then next step is they go get their ultrasound to see how far along they're dated. Okay, so then in the ultrasound room, I thought, well, I can do ultrasounds. This will be great. I can show her baby. It'll be awesome. So I go in the ultrasound room, and I'm doing the ultrasound myself, and my attending is behind me. She doesn't let me speak the whole time. And what they do because at the time the Texas law was you had to show the woman the ultrasound and play the heartbeat. What they do is they put noise canceling headphones on the woman and they say, okay, look that way, play the music. And then they show the screen, they say, this is the pregnancy, this is a gestational sac, and then they play the heartbeat for like a millisecond. And that's how they got around that. And then when she doesn't have the headphones on, they say, so pregnancy or abortion is 14 times safer, their favorite statistic, abortion is 14 times safer than pregnancy, so you're making the right decision, don't worry, this is what's right for you. And so then in the afternoon they do abortion, so I wasn't gonna do that, so they had me cleaning chairs and stuff. And so the next day I emailed my attending, who is my direct supervisor, and she's actually the abortionist who's there. So I email her, so there's like conflict of interest, right? So I email her and I was like, with all due respect, I must opt out of this rotation. I won't be going back to Planned Parenthood. And so she said, okay, well, come meet with me. So I met with her and she said, you know, unfortunately, you have to go, you know, these are the reasons. I said, well, no, I'm gonna opt out of going. I mean, it's in the guidelines, I can opt out. And so we went back and forth, and she said, well, why are you opting out? And I was like, I mean, everyone knew my stance at this point. It's like, it's not a secret. And she's like, I said, well, I don't really want to do an ultrasound on a baby that's going to die the next day. I mean, that's not really. So she's like, oh, okay. I mean, it was just like I said, ships in the night, like just not on the same page. So she said, okay, well then, if you want to continue to opt out. Sorry, this is a long story.
It's okay. We're with you.
Okay, we're here for it. She said, well, you can meet with the chair. I was like, I'm a second-year resident, I'm gonna meet with the chair of the department? I was like, sure, I'll do it. So I met with the chair, and she pulls out all the different objectives for the rotation and says, well, these are the reasons why we need you to go there, because you have to meet these objectives as governed by the ACGME or whatever. And so I said, okay, well, can I see those? And so I went through those and just kind of said, well, I can get this at this clinic, I can get this at this clinic, I can get this here. I don't do abortions, that doesn't matter. And then, so I don't need to go to Planned Parenthood. I can fulfill all these at other places. And so she said, okay, well, if you can propose a different rotation, I'll consider it. I was like, okay, I guess I can make my own curriculum. I mean, how absurd is that to have the student make their own curriculum? But so I did it, and then turned it in that weekend, and then didn't hear back from her. And then she said, I heard back from my supervisor and said, okay, well, we haven't heard back from the chair, so I'll see you tomorrow morning. And so I emailed her, and I waited till like right before I needed to leave, and to wait for the email, and I didn't get it. So I emailed her, I said, with all due respect, I'm not gonna be there. And so I just didn't go. And so I said, I'm gonna be at this clinic until you tell me where to go. And you just go, I just went to that other clinic. And so anyway, so that turned into, I didn't go the whole time. What are they gonna do, drag me there? And so, but then 2 years later, I mean, God is good. I get a call from the chair, and she says, you know what, Ashley? I think it's time we use that curriculum that you made. It had gone through the ranks somehow, and somehow she was pressured into making 2 tracks, one for people who don't want to do abortions and one for, so it's worth it every time.
Yay! Got one right there.
If you don't go to medical school, there won't be a voice for the voiceless.
Right.
Thank you, go ahead. Yes.
Hi, so I'm also a student at SMU. I'm not a biochemistry major, but I did learn in my 6th grade science class that life begins at conception. So in the medical field, it just baffles me that there are doctors that do not see life as life. That's scary, you know, knowing that. And so I guess I'm asking, like in the medical field, there are very certain, like there are facts, correct? Like, and even with treatments, every doctor knows like X, Y, Z. So are they just simply like shifts in the night, or do they choose to like not believe what you learn in your biology classes, or do you understand my question?
Yes.
Okay.
I would love for someone to explain that to me, why they have this cognitive dissonance. I mean, it's insane. It's an insane dissonance that has invaded medicine. I mean, we know that life begins at conception. It's a scientific fact, like you said. But there's been a manipulation of language. So, you know, they used to define pregnancy as when fertilization takes place, but now it's when implantation takes place. So there's manipulation of language. ACOG, that governing body for OBGYNs, has a whole page on their website for the media and what language they want the media to use when talking about abortion. There's a whole propaganda agenda out there for the language for abortion. But then you say, okay, well, they can manipulate language, but what about you as a free thinker? How come you can't just think about it and logically say, well, of course life begins at conception? I don't have the answer for that. I mean, there's just such cognitive dissonance in there. Like I had one attending who said, you know, she's an abortionist. It was really hard performing abortions on 16-week babies when I had a 16-week. I mean, just the dissonance is astounding. And so you really have to pray for all of these, you know, all these healthcare workers and providers, that they can have just clarity of mind at all times.
Amen.
I have a question. Okay. Well, I kind of have two. If you want to answer one, you can. That's fine. So I've talked to a few people who are pro-choice, and multiple people have said, I have a friend who miscarried, and her insurance no longer covers the DNC. Is that true or not? So I'll ask that. And then my other questions, I don't really know the exact question I'm asking. I have some friends going through IVF, and they say that this poses like a lot of issues for people going through IVF and having multiple embryos that they're freezing.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that, or what are the implications of IVF? So kind of two separate questions.
Yeah, the first one's a lot easier. The first one, DNC, I'm not sure. It very much depends on the insurance company. That'd be very strange for it not to be covered. I think it would be very easy if they denied it the first time for it to be covered. It's very standard of care for miscarriage management. I will say though, I did prescribe someone misoprostol for miscarriage management, which is also used in abortions. And I had the pharmacist call me and say, can you just confirm this is an abortion? I said, well, thanks for confirming that. Yeah, it's an abortion. Yes, that's right. So, but she gave the medication. So, I think there is a little bit more hesitancy. I think it's for the good, that there's hesitancy. It may cause more headaches for us as doctors, but in my opinion, that's fine. Your second question with IVF, I mean, this is a whole Pandora's box. I mean, that's why there's so many moral issues with IVF. The most basic one is the one that you're mentioning, that a bunch of embryos are created, and now we're in this moral dilemma of, okay, now you have all these little lives. What do you do with them? What's the best way to handle these lives? I mean, that's an ongoing moral debate amongst theologians, philosophers, bioethicists. I don't know, we probably shouldn't go into it, but there's different ways that people are kind of debating on what the best way to do.
I think there was one young
Dana?
lady over there.
My question was for Tanya. How do the women with unplanned pregnancies know to come to you? Or like how do they mostly come to you? Because the media narrative is just like they ban women's health care, so they'll pay for you to travel to another state. I mean, if you're like a young woman has an unplanned pregnancy and that's what you're doing, like how we have a huge opportunity now that Roe's been overturned, so how are we letting women know that there are like these wonderful options?
Yeah, thanks. So most of our women are finding us online.
Okay.
You're doing a Google search, and so when we pop up, we have AdWords and that sort of thing that if you're seeking abortion, our page will pop up. And a lot of times our donors get concerned, wait, do you perform abortions? No, we provide abortion information. And so women can find us on Google, on Yelp, and then, but we don't have any misconception about who we are. We say it right there, even on our website, you know, that we don't perform or refer, which always boggles me. They know that we don't do it, but they still come to us. So to me, that just says that there's still a need. There's still a need, whether it's they just wanted a free pregnancy test, they didn't want to go pay $1 at the dollar store to get a pregnancy test they want to agree with, or the sonogram, because they need to know how far along they are. And I think really that's the main thing that they're looking for. They don't know that they need counseling. They don't know that they need prayer. They don't know that. But they do know they need to know how far along they are. And so that sonogram really is, helps to draw them in to come to our center. I will say that right after the overturn, we got Yelp. Some people out in the world who don't like us just bombarded our Yelp page with fake clinic. They don't care about you. They're pro-life. They don't have medical staff. Just slandering, just horrible things. Completely not true. And Yelp let that go on for several days for our center and for several centers around the state before they decided to do anything about that. And so. That was frustrating, but our website, we're doing a revamp on our website right now, and it will have a lot of abortion information on it. And if you don't know who we are, you might wonder, well, do y'all perform? Like, what side are you on? But we really, you know, you have to look at our website from the standpoint of the client, not as a donor, not as a Christian, not as, you know, you really have to look at it from the standpoint of what is the client seeking? What is this woman seeking? Because that's the information we want to give her as far as, are we knowledgeable enough to help her? Yes. So make an appointment, book an appointment, call our number. And so, but in addition to Google and our website, we also have bench ads. I mean, do people still look at bench ads? You know, but they do. They do. Right there local. So the internet is all, everybody goes there first, but just locally in our area, you'll see a few of our bench ads, and nothing crazy. Are you pregnant? You know, you need help? They're really vague. But those, we get a lot of people that say that they heard about us through the bench ads, and so it's kind of funny. But so we try to, you know, we pay a lot monthly to, you know, for ads on Google and that sort of thing. But yeah, what they know that we're not an abortion clinic, and that's the main thing. But they come anyway for that help.
I think John has a question.
I have a question for Tanya. Leanne gave some statistics about the state of Georgia and how abortion has disproportionately affected the Afro-American community. Is there any way to explain that? Because the statistic she gave is way out of bounds. Any way to explain that?
It's very frustrating. I don't know the answer. I know that a lot of abortion clinics have been strategically placed in neighborhoods that are predominantly minority, you know, which makes you want to scream. But I think the financial aspects might come into that also. But I wish I had a better understanding of that stat, because you know, to be a minority population but having such a vast amount of the abortions performed it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And that's the only way I can describe that. But I wish I did understand that, other than the fact that, you know, it's on purpose.
Right.
It's on purpose.
Right.
But that's frustrating.
Just the simple answer. Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
Me?
Thank you all. That concludes our program. We just want to thank Tanya and Ashley so much again for sharing your experiences and expertise. I think we all feel much more equipped to go out there and have conversations about life with all the clarity you've provided. So, and thank you all for being here.
Rebecca's going to close us in prayer.
Well, the resources you've handed out, are those on your website, Suzanne?
Well,
we
have
not.
life-affirming agencies. We have a resource page that's in the categories that are on the back of our mission statement of our beneficiaries, but you know what? Thank you, Sue Bailey. We need to add those to our website.
We've been wanting to do that.
We've been talking about
We've been talking
We've
about
been busy.
We're gonna close in prayer, I think.
Yes, oh, and our beautiful hostess, Rebecca, is going to close us in prayer.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for all your questions, especially the hard questions. You know, we've gotta go there, and we can do that. So if you'll just bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we're just so grateful to be gathered together as women and men that want to stand for life. I thank you for our great speakers tonight. I thank you for the wisdom. I thank you for the call. I thank you for the work that you're doing in them and through them for our community. And Father, I just ask that you would give us discerning hearts and minds to see and understand the truth, and that we would be able to speak truth in love to the people that we run into that are not, that are pro-choice, Lord. That conversation needs to happen in a loving, beautiful way. And we just ask that you would give us those opportunities. Lord, as we leave tonight, would you just protect everyone on their way home? And thank you for your presence. In Jesus' name, amen.